Previously on The Walking Dead, we continued onwards to Season 2 and covered another compilation of mysteries. More missing characters whom I believe were killed off camera, with the exception of Mike and the 400 Days cast. We covered Kenny's fate after the Wellington ending, and we debated Carlos's credibility and whether or not he was actually legit. Following the release of Volume 2, I have been hard at work playing through and researching its successor, which is of course the polarizing Season 3, A New Frontier. The first game to introduce a new engine, cast of main characters, new locations and new mysteries. I really enjoyed my most recent playthrough and I didn't have much trouble finding some questions that need to be answered. So once again, let's go back to when Outbreak started, a time when Clementine was still hiding up in her treehouse to find the first of these. We are introduced to the Garcias in the prologue scene at the start of episode 1. Because of the outbreak, Javier's car gets caught in traffic on his way home to say goodbye to his not-so-deceased dad. This is important for later. When he enters the home, Mariana says that he is still awake, and when the family go to check on him, he bites both Mrs. Garcia and Hector in a desperate struggle. After putting him down, the final scene shows David taking his mother to the County General Hospital, and the rest of the family follow him from Kate's car. It's here where Hector notices a small bite mark on his arm. He covers it and the screen immediately cuts to black. Now, these two deaths, especially Hector's, are never really mentioned again after the prologue. That's why it's so mysterious. Clearly they both died, but we know nothing in regards to how long they lasted, who put them out of their misery, and if they even made it to the hospital. Hector's fate is somehow way more disturbing and ambiguous. Assuming that he survived a little longer than his sister, he was still there when Kate drove back to the house after losing contact with David, and he would have slowly turned over the course of a day or two. I think this bite is extremely similar to Lee's in Season 1, so that time frame is the most accurate comparison that we have, although to be fair, Lee was doing all sorts of crazy things in episode 5 that didn't exactly increase his life expectancy. In episode 3, there's a flashback scene depicting the family's life at the house while waiting for David to come home. This was 3 months after the outbreak started, so chronologically, this is the closest point after Hector's death, and the aftermath is apparent if we look close enough. The family no longer sleep in separate rooms. Instead, they all sleep in the living room within eyesight of one another. According to a Telltale staff member, Hector was a key reason for why they do this. After coming home initially, he was still well enough to not raise any concerns. He held up in his room as the infection intensified, and one night, while everyone was asleep, he turned and nearly cost the life of Mariana or Gabriel. Javi was the one to put him down. I say this because he had to do the same thing a few months prior with his dad. Kate, on the other hand, was too afraid to pass us the hammer and kill Gabe's friend in the same flashback, so it wasn't her, was it?
You've got to be more careful.
This route plays out slightly differently depending on who you save in episode 4. If Tripp stays with us until episode 5, he won't be able to make it across the helicopter and quickly gets overwhelmed by walkers. He then falls to his supposed death after running out of bullets. In the Ava path, she dies while shimmying across this narrow platform. She wasn't careful enough and a walker climbs out of the car and knocks her off balance. Many people believe that their fate has been sealed, but others including myself will argue that at no point does a walker actually bite them. All we see is their fall, which ironically takes place above water, so it's not definitive enough for a Telltale death in my opinion. After witnessing Kenny in the alleyway, to see him come back like he wasn't in the worst possible situation that you could ever be in, Ava and Tripp are nothing in comparison. So let's talk more about these scenes and speculate what actually happened if they in fact did survive, and if there's a chance we ever get to see them again. It's hard to see at first, but in this shot we can see water beneath the platform where Ava fell, but the thing that's surprising to me is that there's no splash or thud that you'd expect to hear from a fall such as this.
Holy shit! Oh my god! Ava! Fuck! God damn it, no!
There's just silence, which is evidence to support that she didn't actually fall as far as you'd think. She may have even grabbed onto something on the way down. The counter-argument is that both David and Clementine are looking straight down as this occurs, but they were probably obscured by these metal bars and the road itself. Again, there's no camera angle, so it's very difficult to theorize what exactly happened. It pans toward David at a speed which makes it seem intentionally inconclusive. It's also possible that she got impaled on the way down or something and they didn't want us to see it, but I'll conclude that she's probably alive due to the lack of evidence. If she was intended to die right here, then the walker should have bitten her before she fell. I'll talk briefly about Trip 2, as his death scene is basically the same minus the exact location and one small detail that decreases his chances of surviving the fall, which is a shame since Trip is one of my favourite characters in Season 3. Unlike Ava, Trip hit his neck on the way down. This could have severely injured him, making it impossible to swim to safety or escape the 3 walkers that fell alongside him. He also stopped screaming when this happened, emphasizing the damage, the impact. He could have died right here if the fall or the multiple walkers didn't kill him later. I hate to say this, but I don't think that Trip made it. Only Ava could have made it, and in her case it's partially the fault of the devs for not properly clarifying it in the scene. I feel as if either both characters should have died on camera or both should have lived to the end. Choosing to save one of them, only for the other to die in the next episode regardless, seems very unsatisfying.
What happened?
I don't know, buddy. I can't find her.
I can't stop looking. Kate, where are you?
Kate! Kate!
Kate, please! Kate, where the fuck are you?
So we've gone through the missing characters of Season 1 and 2 in my previous videos, so I think it's only right that we make a part 3. These vary from the antagonists who we can choose to keep alive, and after a certain point we never hear from them again, 2 members of the Garcia family who go missing after a difficult decision in the final episode. Let's go through these now and try and figure out what happened to them. The criteria for the Kate goes missing ending are quite difficult. To tell you the truth, I've yet to play through this ending for myself, but from what I've read, you need to have Clementine go with Kate in episode 5, and you also need to fight David and proceed to follow him with Gabe. This ensures that Kate doesn't turn into a walker, but instead they get separated after sealing the wall. Clementine doesn't think she made it, judging by her language, saying things like, "I think she's gone," and commenting on the number of walkers as if she didn't have a fighting chance.
There were so many walkers. I barely made it through.
Kate!
Javi. I think she's gone. Just gone.
I think it's best to trust Clementine's logic here and conclude that she passed away or turned soon after splitting up with Clementine. There's just nothing else to use in her defense, besides the fact that we don't see it on camera, but that seems to be the case for most missing characters who have declared dead in the past. Who knows though, we could be looking at another Kenny incident and she'll reappear in Season 5 like nothing ever happened. During the public execution, either one of the 2 leaders escapes Richmond based on your choice to take Clint's deal and leave. If you decide to shoot Joan rather than take the deal, then Clint will escape, and if you take the deal, David will shoot Clint and vice versa. It's an ongoing trope, but yeah, this is the last time we see them both. So it's clear that they escaped Richmond somehow by the events of episode 5. A cool theory I've read is that they were able to convince a small faction of people to leave with them to start a rebellion against the people of Richmond later on. It's a long shot, but at the end of Season 4 there's a flashback scene where she rescues AJ, and when she's about to drive off, she says this.
Can't go back to Richmond. This whole area is a war zone.
This could have been the rebellion started by Joan or Clint to take back control of the city. This was also before the events of the Delta in Season 4, so that war is unrelated to this one as far as I can tell. She could also be referencing the Walker Horde, so it's up in the air honestly. But who else would want to start a war with Richmond other than its former leaders who want Javi dead? Lastly, we have Lonnie and Max. Lonnie is the guy who you knock out in Season 1. We also have the choice to kill his friend after Clementine destroys his truck with a tree. He kind of just stands around a lot in various scenes doing nothing, but it's at a crucial point in episode 3 where both Max and Lonnie's lives are decided. Basically, if you kill Max and confront Joan about their raids, Lonnie will lie and accuse us of murdering them without reason. It's here where David lashes out and shoots him in the head. If you save Max under the premise that he exposes Joan, he fulfills his promise. No one dies in this scenario, but they both go missing afterwards. It's confirmed in the wiki that Max and Lonnie, the only two survivors of the Raider group, were exiled off screen by the committee. Apparently during episodes 4 and 5 they were kept in a holding cell awaiting their departure after the herd cleared. My theory is that they regrouped with Joan or Clint after they left Richmond, and they were members of the rebellion, as mentioned by Clementine in season 4.
I remember this team. Your dad ever teach you about baseball?
No, not really.
Well, you come back, and I'll tell you all about it.
Following the story onwards to the final season, there's no mention of Javier or any of the season 3 cast besides the war with the Delta. It's believed that Telltale tried to separate themselves from it as much as they could. I know that I didn't like season 3 much when it came out. Generally, it was poorly received. Because of this, season 4 was marketed towards fans of the earlier seasons. As a result, Javier and his family have been abandoned, and it's extremely unlikely that we'll ever see them again. But imagine if he and Kenny teamed up in season 5, that would be amazing. At this point I'm kind of done with Clementine, to be honest. I think that her side of the story has the perfect ending, so if they ever do decide to revisit the series, I'd much rather see Kenny and Javi tie up their loose ends. In the season 3 finale, it's evident that Javier was supposed to return in season 4 to some extent. It's hinted at in this dialogue when he offers to teach Clementine baseball upon her return. They even shake hands on it. After that, we have a choice. We can recommend that Clementine stay away from Richmond, or we can recommend that she brings AJ back so he can grow up in a safe environment. But in typical Telltale fashion, this choice does absolutely nothing. I want to make this one a short what-if scenario, similar to the Ben one in my first video. What if Javi ditched Richmond and resorted back to the road with Kate and Gabe? It's how they were able to survive for so long, and at a certain point you have to question if risking your life fighting a senseless war for the people who were once celebrating your brother's execution in episode 4 was all worth it. To hell with these people, and Javier was never their leader to begin with. He only said that he should step up at the end, but we're never given confirmation on his leadership status after this point. It's unclear if Javier or Kate had a destination in mind while on the road. Using Google Maps as a reference point, they started in Baltimore, Maryland, and after the 4-year time skip, they ended up 150 miles south near Richmond, Virginia. This was also close to the location of season 2's final episode, which is cool. They didn't travel very much in those 4 years, opting to exhaust the neighbouring communities of and around Baltimore for supplies while slowly moving south. At least that's my theory. Maybe like Kenny, the family was planning to move to Mexico, and since they're travelling along the east coast, they could have encountered Kenny along the way if things had played out differently. And if the war in Richmond does cause its eventual collapse, it sets up a season 5 quite well.
I gotta admit, man, you're a fucking badass.
You're a real charmer. You know that, through and through.
Are you really sure you don't want to stay? There's room.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Finally, a real mystery for once. And hear me out because the evidence and support for this theory is overwhelming. Look, the whole Kate thing is so forced to the point where I dislike her as a character. The chemistry is off. Even if you do romance her, it's hard to explain. You just need to play it and pay close attention. I feel bad for Javier that Kate's constantly trying to cheat on his own brother for him. Because of this, I reject her every time I play and the satisfaction is immeasurable. But that's just one romance option. What does that have to do with Javier's sexuality? Watch this scene with Jesus and Javier to understand what a real spark looks like. Jesus also says that, quote, "I read people pretty well, a little gift of mine." This is his way of saying, I know a fellow gay guy when I see one. For anyone doubting if Jesus is actually gay himself and isn't just having a laugh, well, he is. I don't like to bring up the TV show, but he says it in the show. Fans have also unanimously agreed that he's gay in the comics, the Telltale game version being a very accurate tie-in and not a reimagining. Lastly, Javier has been confirmed as bisexual by a member of the writing staff. This explains basically everything we need to know about why the Kate romance is even a thing. Why is there this scene with Eleanor in episode 1?
Why is it always the pretty ones who end up causing the most trouble? As if good looks equal bad behavior or something.
But after she betrays us and nearly kills David, we have the option to cut ties with her in the most blunt way possible.
That's worth forgiving, right? She's trying. That counts.
She can go to hell. I want nothing to do with her.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
So yes, I believe that Javier had a crush on Jesus, and that they could have even pursued a relationship together after the story of Season 3 ended. That concludes Volume 3 of the Mystery Catalogue for The Walking Dead. I honestly thought that I'd only have like 2 mysteries for this video, but I was able to scrape something together. So thanks again, and if you have any suggestions or thoughts on Season 4, please let me know by email or comment.